We'll fuck all the dice, bring worlds to life. Masters of the dungeon, cutting like a knife. Heroes, villains, lord, share. Learn the craft, magic in the air.
Welcome to Masters of the Dungeon, the podcast where game masters get deeply nerdy about the joys of running tabletop RPGs. I'm Nacho, and as always, I'm joined by the mighty glue stick himself, Mr. AJ Pickett. Each week, we're going to be joined by a special guest, and today we're thrilled to welcome Reagan. He's the game master from Getting Dicey, an actual play D&D podcast.
Hey,
Hey,
nice to
man.
be here.
Oh, the honour is ours.
So, fill us in on Getting Dicey.
Getting Dicey was something that came about because I got introduced to Dungeons and Dragons very late in my life. So I must have been, this was like 2017, so like 7 years back. I'm in my late 30s, and a friend of mine who I'd worked with before was like, hey, did you want to play some Dungeons and Dragons? And I said, look, I've heard about it. I don't know anything. He talked me through creating a character. We're just going to do a one-shot. It was some sort of mansion. AJ, you probably know of the one shot that's set in a wizard's mansion. We played that, and partway through, my mind just got blown by what D&D was. It was amazing. I thought the freedom you've got as because I love video games. I played a shitload of video games over my life. But this was like the most freeing in regards to what I could do. And we did some crazy stuff. It was awesome. So when he asked if I wanted to do like a proper campaign, I said absolutely. And we started Storm King's Thunder. So Storm King's Thunder was my first campaign. Partway through that, I was just every single session, every week, I was like, this is one of the best things I've ever done. This is so amazing. I'm enjoying every damn aspect of this. And if I'm enjoying it, surely someone will enjoy like watching us play. And so I didn't know anything about Twitch, and I just set something up, made a really super basic overlay, and we just went live with it. You know, basic introductions, ignore the audience, let's just play. And that was like 2017, and you know, we've gone through Storm King's Thunder, and then at the end of that, I took over as DM, having only ever played Storm King's Thunder and this one shot. I was like, all right, let's try DMing, and that's kind of where Getting Dicey's been from there, just with me as the main dungeon master or game master, depending on what we're playing. And we've gone through just 6 more years of just different stories and adventures now.
Fascinating. I played through Storm King's Thunder as well as a player, and that's pretty much one of the only 5th edition modules, campaigns that I've actually played through.
Right.
So yeah, it's really interesting. I'd love to swap notes about that.
It's a good exploration of the Forgotten Realms, or the Sword Coast anyway, because you go all over the show.
Oh, you sure do.
Yeah, all over the place.
Yeah, because you've got some, I noticed you've got, I've watched your Lost Mine of Thandalva one. You got Curse of Strahd on there, but also Alien RPG.
Yeah. This year we just wanted to try a few extra systems. So we tried out Alien RPG after people on the Discord suggested it, highly rated. It was something that I'd seen I saw it in the back there of your shot there, AJ. Saw it in a bookstore, and I was like, okay, I got to pick this up. So we tried that. We tried Twilight 2000, and we're going through Dragonbane. So up until that point, it was basically 98% Dungeons and Dragons and 2% Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice. Yeah. Twilight 2000. That's
That's old school.
That's 1984 post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, it's an alternate Cold War era sort of game. Yeah. It's set contemporary around the time that it was made.
Yeah.
And it's like what's going on in the Ukraine and Russia, but everywhere.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's that was one of the ones that took me probably the most by surprise, because I'm not a gun guy. I'm not even that much of a war guy. I don't watch war movies or anything like that. And I was like, we'll give it a go. I loved it. The system was amazing. to the point that it's a hex crawler, but then you break down into bigger maps, sort of close quarters maps and stuff like that. And just the type of combat and the role play was just fantastic. So definitely, the biggest hardship there was getting the Polish names not sounding terrible coming out of our mouths.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of Palladium Books for a long time, and they have the Rifts RPG, which is, on the surface, it's a really sort of gonzo sci-fi fantasy setting where the world has been invaded by supernatural things, like Stonehenge has exploded into, like magic has returned to the world in a big way at the end of a technological apocalypse on the Earth, where there's been like a nuclear exchange and things like that. So everything all happens at once. But you sort of come into the game, or the way that I recommend people come into the game, as the loyalist human troops of the last bastion of humanity, which is the coalition states, sort of centered around Chicago, old Chicago, Chi-Town. And that militarized sort of structure to it lends itself really well to role-playing games. I don't know why, it just does. Like old sort of Vietnam game called Recon by the same company. Same sort of thing. You just play a sort of squad, and you've got these expendable kind of characters. But I like it. Anybody's like enjoyed like military shows like Band of Brothers or that sort of stuff. China Beach or that's really good.
It really lends itself to just like jumping on the tropes that you've seen in movies, right? And just having fun with it. Yeah,
cliches work for a reason.
Yeah.
Isn't Dragonbane, was that a Swedish game from memory?
Yeah, that's so that Twilight 2000 and Alien and Forbidden Lands and a bunch of others are all published by Free League.
So they've been recently rebooted.
Yeah,
because these are all old 80s games originally, aren't they?
Dragonbane was an 80s. I think it was a late 70s Swiss game. Yeah, that only just this version is like the 9th edition or something, and it got translated into English. It's great.
Really characteristic, fantastic artwork in it by this Ecotrans, and Boel, the lady that was like the marketing person for it. She's really good.
She helped us with a few giveaways. She was great.
Yeah, she's unfortunately moved on to other things, so I hope they get somebody as good.
Nice. All right. So before we sort of dive into today's topic, I have a segment. I'm calling it Game Master Backstory, where I explore your ideals, bonds, and flaws.
Nice.
The common traits that shape you as a game master. So I'm going to kick it off with your ideals. Is there a core philosophy that shapes how you approach being a game master? Deep questions, mate.
Yeah, that's a tough question. But it's one of those things that, because I still call myself like a relatively new game master, but I've been doing it for like four years, 4 or 5 years now. But it was one of those things where I started in front of an audience since we went straight into live streaming. And I feel DMing for a group of pals at a desk with snacks is vastly different than that sort of for radio, where you can't have dead air at all. There's that. It's got to keep going. So one of my philosophies now, which probably wasn't there to begin with, was momentum. Like keeping momentum going. It's great for the viewers. That's how you keep the viewers. But it also really helps not railroad, but push your players into progressing, and then they get used to no dead air as well. So when you, as a game master, set something up and then sit in silence, they don't want there to be dead air either, and they just jump in with role play. So my philosophy, my ideal is that momentum, keeping momentum. How do I keep that momentum?
Pacing.
How do I structure that where I am? How can I structure it in a way that leaves a hook for the player to jump onto? Yeah, to keep that momentum going.
I do like the way you do your role playing with it reminds me of SpongeBob with the painting, with the the moving mouth thing is it's really cool.
That was purely because I was so nervous about doing voices to an audience that could see my face.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how can I do this without showing my face? I'll just I took the very first character I did with like the goblins at the start of The Lost Mine.
Yeah.
I grabbed the image from the Lost Mine PDF, I cut the mouth out, and I put it as an overlay over my camera just with a click of a button. So I could put on the goblin voice without feeling so stupid.
It works, though. It works, yeah. And
I love it. Yeah.
And the other one I noticed that you did is you're having your audience members donate like a monster. Was it Billy the Goblin? Yeah, would rock up. So so when the play and there was certain one of the streams I was watching, there's a certain time where those players were struggling and they're almost dying, and that's when your audience members decides to like fuck with them even more.
And we had one viewer who, I don't know what was going on with their bank balance or their wallet attached to Twitch at the time, but he was like, I want to see it like 4 times this session. Like, I want to keep bringing him back. Yeah. And I had this might lead on to something later, but I was really struggling with the idea of how do I make this fun for the players and the audience, like having the audience being able to donate either by subscribing or bits and stuff like that. How can I, and they get the reward of being able to create this guy that keeps coming back to torment the players. How do I make that fun for the players as well, and not just, oh my God, a nuisance? And that's when you got to be smart as a DM and be like, look, this is the second or third time he's shown up in the last hour and a half.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just gonna like one shot him this time. And like, how do I make him reappearing? How do I actually make that interesting in the long run? Now that I've set that as a precedent, where do I take that character's story that is in this turmoil of being like reincarnated by the viewers and brought back with vengeance to the players? Like, how do I make that fun and intertwine his little story with the wider Lost Mine story?
Yeah, one of your players, I think what was his name? David? Is it David?
Yeah.
He just his frustration was actually making it more hilarious, to be honest.
Yeah,
he was like abusing the audience member.
Yeah.
So no, I thought it was good. All right, let's go with your bond. Is there a part of being a game master you feel especially connected or passionate about?
I think you mentioned it sort of as we were talking before we started recording, is that we're all storytellers, right?
Mm.
And it's that storytelling aspect. I love delivering a description and just watching the players' faces change, whether it's in a good way or in a terrified way. That's that storytelling and getting that visual feedback from your players in real time is just fantastic. It's addictive. That's one of the more addictive parts of it.
I can see why you enjoyed Call of Cthulhu then, because that's very much.
Oh yeah, Call of Cthulhu is definitely a vibe. You know, it's a game that's got a in fact, I'd say that's like the poster child of a game that is designed to elicit a certain result.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Dave as well. Dave in Lost Mine, he played this character that it was a
Goliath,
barbarian, Goliath, and it was all about just like cracking skulls and cutting things up and attacking whatever moved. And then we brought him as a player into Call of Cthulhu as just like a human. You are now just a human, and there's these things running in to try and get you. And he was like, there's a cupboard there. I'm going to go jump in the cupboard, and I'm just going to stay quiet, and I'm shutting the doors, and I'm just in there. And everyone else is like doing the story, and we're like, we kept coming back to him. Dave, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just staying safe. I don't want to move. It was awesome. Such an amazing difference. In
How
the
do you
way
win? Don't participate. Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, your flaw. What's one part of your GM style that you're currently trying to improve or refine?
The one thing there's two things, I guess. One thing is trying to remove filler words. I use so many filler words.
Yeah.
And then when you're turning it into a podcast or editing it for YouTube or whatever, you just hear it, and there's no way to cut it out and still keep that flow. You got to cut out like chunks. It's so hard.
We have the same flaw.
Yeah.
Best advice I ever got was write a script of
Right.
your thing, and that's improved not just my videos, but the way I talk in general.
Oh, that's good.
Just from
That's
years
really
and
good.
years of like not talking to people all day, and the only thing I do say is video stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second floor, the thing that I'm trying to improve on is how I describe things. I have stuck to like pre-written campaigns the majority of my gaming time as a game master. I only veered away for a year to do what my own little story, which I love dearly. And now that I've gone back to now that we're doing Dragonbane, we're playing through a pre-written story for that, and I'm just trying to break away from the pre-written stuff so I can come across more naturally, and delve into my own imagination so I can get used to describing my imagination. So and I think in the last 3 or 4 sessions we've had, my descriptions for what we're going through have improved a lot, just because it's something I'm actively trying to do. It's kind of become quite important for me that, like, at the end of a session, I want my players to almost feel like they were there, like they have visual memories of what happened. Look, I'm talking to people who will probably be wanting the exact same things from their players, right?
Lots of reading. Lots of read. Yeah. Lots of. I found, the more fantasy and stuff like that I read, the better and better my descriptions become.
I've been exposed mostly through Discord, actually. A lot of people, particularly in the last few years, like I was never aware of the fact that some people had an internal monologue and some people don't. I don't. And
okay.
Some people have aphasia, so they can't visualize things. And the idea of spoons, mental energy, right? So if you give a big monologue about something, and it's particularly something that people have a hard time visualizing, or don't have the right tools to imagine, picture it their way, it's very taxing on them, and they use up their energy before they even get to interact as a character. So that's one thing that I've been really, really focusing on for me lately.
Nice. All right. Okay, live streaming. That is our topic today. So what unique challenges do you face when you run a role-playing game for a live audience compared to a private game?
Yeah, so I've already sort of touched on that whole momentum. The moment that you go quiet for too long, you create an awkwardness that someone who was immersed in watching suddenly, for a brief moment, goes, I'm sitting on my ass watching a stream. Like, you don't want that to enter in their mind. You want at any point. And then the flip side, which I see every time I chuck on, I'd say almost every time I chuck on a Dungeons and Dragons live stream, I see the DMs so lost in themselves, forgetting that they're performing for viewers and their players. They get so caught up in the dramatics, and they're trying to be an actor, and they're trying to maybe put all of the information onto their players in one big chunk to get it out of the way so we can then get into the game. And it's just, for me, I look at them and how they'll have like hundreds of live viewers. And I'm just like, how are people interested right now? And they're not. They're all just chatting away in the chat about stuff. So I think one of the biggest challenges is that how do you keep your audience interested without like interrupting your players? Because you're doing it for your players. So how can you do it for your players and then not go, hey, thanks for the subscription, or like cut that down in the middle with thanking for a subscription or a donation and stuff. It's and I haven't perfected it. In fact, in probably the last year and a half, I've gone too far the other way, where we show up, we thank everyone who's in the chat at the time, and then we play for an hour, and then we have a break. And then I thank the chat for being there and what's going on, talk to the chat for a bit, and then we play for an hour, just ignoring the chat completely. So it's quite a drastic change from where we were with Lost Mine, where we had people donating and seeing their donations affect the game. And it was purely because at the end of Lost Mine, one of the biggest complaints from the players was Billy Goblin showed up too much. Like having the players just decide today's a day we're gonna hit like Billy Goblin. We did it 4 times last week. We'll do it 5 times this week. So I had to start like figuring out the balance, and figuring out the balance or something new for each thing is really hard. So we had Billy Goblin for the Lost Mine of Phandelver. And the second one, we had a character called Needle, who, when the donations got to a certain point, he would appear out of the ether with this big spin wheel, and he would spin the wheel, and whatever landed was either a bonus or a penalty for later or now, depending on what was fun. And so that was just this completely random thing that the viewers had control over. And again, that same feedback, which was like just maybe a little too much. So trying to get that right. Then when we moved into Caldera's Call, which was my homebrew, I was just like, we're not going to do it this time. We're just going to let it sit, and just whatever happens with our viewers will happen with our viewers. And what happened with our viewers is we lost viewers. So it was very clear cut that it's something we needed to do. But I felt it was also not really valuing my players as much. So in the end, we were just some friends getting together to play together. It's not something we were like, hey, let's make this a business and let's, as a group, perform for the viewers. It was like, let's just play, which I think is what lends our play style. I don't know, man. Almost every single session we have, I can listen to, and I'm just cracking up because of the chemistry. We're clearly doing it for each other and not anyone else. It's just, but I'm sure every Dungeons and Dragons group says that about their group, right?
Well, I see. I mean, forever for the last 2 decades, since the internet's been around and RPG net, it's always I've got a problem player, and I said, no, you don't have a problem player. You've got a relationship problem with your friend. You know, maybe step back from the game and realize that you're just there. You know, you'd be having the same problems if you're playing Monopoly, or poker. You know, so it's not. You can't DM your way out of a friendship problem. So, good point.
Yeah, even though you say you're still like a new game master, you've had a totally different. Like I've been playing for years, decades, and I've not had to deal with that side of the game. So you've played a totally different type of Dungeons and Dragons or role playing game than I've ever played. So that's something I don't think, even though I've got maybe more experience than you behind the screen, I don't think that's something I would know how to deal with an audience at the same time, or a comment section. Do you think people like picking apart your judgments as a game master?
Oh, dude, because I was new to it with Lost Mine, every tiny little thing that I didn't do right was being flagged in the chat. Even to this day, our Lost Mine playthrough on YouTube will get comments about stuff that we're doing wrong. And I'm just like, in the end, it's just rule of cool. If I get it wrong, look, this is just how we're rolling with it this time. No one needs to be like, nothing is like hanging off this one decision. And if it is, then I'm doing a terrible job.
Yeah.
So,
there's no statute of limitations on YouTube comments. I get stuff from 7 years ago. You pronounced that dinosaur name wrong. It's like, I did that on purpose so you'd comment on my video.
Yeah.
Those ones that start with, well, actually.
Yeah. But I'd love to do like an in-person game where that doesn't require me to be doing it live for an audience as well. I don't think I would I've done it for so long this way that I probably wouldn't do it any different. I think I've focused so much on filling gaps and keeping that momentum alive that I think I would continue doing that even without that audience.
Fascinating. You that strikes me as like a modern gamer. Like,
right.
So for a lot of us who have been doing it for a long time, there's a bridge that we're trying to build between the home game and convention games, which we have sort of been the thing which is different from normal play, and now streaming games and games for entertainment and like stage with an audience, live games and things like that. That's like theater sport. It's a totally new thing. And I would go, like if there was somebody turning up with a gaming group, like a troupe of bards showing up at like a circus, showing up in your town and saying, we're going to put on a role-playing game, come and participate. Here's the adventure on the program manual instead of like what's play about. If you want to contribute, when you see the green light, shout out some suggestions. I'd be totally into that, man.
Yeah.
Totally. I'd pay $20 at the door. No problem.
Yeah, a few years ago, I did a couple of nights with the Fate of Ison group in front of a live audience in a bar, and that was it was amazing. I've done theater stuff in the past. It's been years since I've done it, but D&D is kind of theater anyway. It was amazing. The biggest difference is putting a joke out there, putting something out there, and getting that instant like audio feedback was so addictive. Something I'd definitely be keen to do again. But it's very different. You can't have that dead air. You got to be on. You got to be thinking.
Yeah. Oh, I'd be nervous. I'd be sweating bullets.
Yeah,
I like that dead air as a DM.
Yeah.
Because I sit there. I like sitting there watching them plot and talk amongst each other, and it's
But they're talking. I'm like I'm
alive. So
nobody's
you
talking.
can't see it, but I have a table right next to me. So I don't play online. I have people come to my house. So I run 2 games a week. I'd be like your granddad trying to use a mobile phone with a VTC. I am very old school.
You're like, yeah. Face right up against the screen.
That's one of the other challenges with live streaming is I've got a version of Roll20 which the audience sees. So I've created a new player that has access to everybody's tokens, right? And I've got that over on one part of my screen. On another part of my screen, I have my version of OBS that controls my the faces that I put on for all of the different characters. I got hundreds of them now. Then I have another version of OBS running which controls putting all of our players' faces together, the map, the overlay, all together. Then I've got Sirenscape running so I can make sounds, and I've got that as a little player. I've got everyone's videos there. I've got the chat up. I've got something else up as well. And then I've got my Surface Pro next to me on my desk, which has all of my DMing and my DMing map, all my DMing notes, as well as like controlling Sirenscape. So it's keeping that all going while paying attention and making sure no dead air is happening.
You're a wizard. You're a wizard, my friend.
I'm exhausted by the end of a session, but I love it.
You're behind your DM screen. Sounds like the friggin' like you're in the captain's chair of the Enterprise.
Yeah. And I've got a deck.
I like Kazam. Yeah.
And then I've got like a stream deck that I use that has little buttons on that I can quickly change faces and stuff.
Yeah.
And it always goes down well when I press the wrong face and all of my players go, "Oh, I didn't know they were there." No, okay, wrong face. Back to me.
You don't know how lucky you have it, players.
Yeah.
You'd be lucky if you get Microsoft Paint, That's it.
Okay. We've probably already covered this. What's one mistake you made early on in live streaming, and what did you learn from it?
I think this is not so much. We'll move away from the live streaming for a bit. The biggest mistake I made as an early game master was just, and I should have known better. I've done theater sports before. I shouldn't say no to anything, but there I was just saying no because I'd prepped a very, very specific way. And someone would be like, "I want to do this," and I'd be like, "Well, that doesn't work because that can't happen here." So early on, there was a lot of that understanding that if you say no to a player, and it just kills their motivation for the next 10 minutes. They're gone.
Don't railroad your game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you hear that all the time, and I always thought that figuratively in regards to where the story goes. But every little decision is part of the story, and I just didn't really get that.
Yeah.
There's hidden things that come from being an experienced game master as well. It's like your players might want to go in that direction, and you've got something planned for the other direction, but you can just switch that.
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
With live streaming, it's a little bit harder because I've prepped a map and the faces for the characters and the voices for the characters. And then suddenly they're not going there. They're going to an area I haven't even looked at. And I'm just like, let's go. And now that's where I am now. I'm like, all right, well, we're not going to have maps for this bit and we're not going to have faces, and that's okay. Like, that's actually totally okay.
Well, there you go. Getting Dicey is not a scripted live stream. We've got that.
Yeah.
Straight from the Game Masters map.
Yeah, no, there's nothing scripted. The one thing that, again, early on with that live streaming sort of thing, I'd always say to my players, like, without me knowing, like, we had a private Discord channel that I was not allowed in. They had access to just plot and prep whatever they wanted to, have those conversations about what's going to be happening next. And it got to a point there where they're just like, we're not going to do that anymore because every time that we plan anything, it doesn't work out. So we're not going to do that anymore. It's like, okay, that's cool. Because my prep is definitely over time dropped off, which is great. I used to spend hours, 5-6 hours a week, like just at my computer, reading every detail, trying to leave notes for what's the best flow story-wise for these things to occur. And now I'll be like 30 minutes, just like, okay, what are we doing tonight? I'll make like 6 bullet points for the things that I would like to happen tonight, but if they don't, they don't.
Yeah.
And just leave it at that. So prep time is dropped a lot.
Big fan of John 4, who's been around for a long time. It's John with 2 J's. And he's had a newsletter that he's run for a long time that is just DMing advice.
Cool.
Really solid DMing advice. And he came up with this model called the 5-room dungeon, which is really the five-pillar story structure. And it lends itself really well to planning out your games with a time constraint. So, you know how long this adventure is going to take because of the structure. And Mike Shea, who is the Sly Flourish, he's the Lazy Dungeon Master. He'll publish the Lazy Dungeon Master series of books. He's also got a newsletter and podcasts and all of the things, very much sort of in that sort of same style. And the Lazy Dungeon Master is all about cutting down your prep time and just narrowing it down to what are the basics, what are the essentials. And he's a big proponent of like, don't dangle the thing over here and then make them jump through all these hoops. Put the thing that you want to put in the game, the exciting thing, straight up front, like load it up, and then just, as you say, pacing. Keep it going. My pacing tool is just hit them with frenetic stuff coming at them. So there's 5, like just Fred has said, there's always like 5 things that are threatening their character at any one time.
Oh, right.
So yeah,
cool.
I always think of the environment as a monster.
Yeah.
And monsters as challenges, not just foes. So there are opportunities and things like that. So in the start of the game, it's sort of clues and things which help you later on. So you can't really skip any. You can skip things like that whole don't say no, but. If they say no and don't engage with the story or the NPC, then they're missing out on a clue that is not critical, but it's certainly going to help them later on. Connecting it all together.
Yeah, that's a great Matt Mess. I mean, I'm not the biggest Critical Role guy, but I do like Matt Mess's. You can certainly try. Is probably really good.
It's certainly try. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
The dice will tell us, mate.
Yeah.
The dice make things interesting.
Yep.
I used to be one of those. I'm just going to keep my dice rolls to myself. And if they're not going quite where I want because I want a little bit more drama or a little less drama, I can fudge it. I just don't do that anymore. The dice roll what they roll now. It just didn't seem fair.
Interesting thing I've seen this week was don't give your boss monster hit points.
Yeah,
they die when they need to die.
Yeah. I do that in general with most of my enemy attacks. If had this awesome moment just in Dragonbane, the last session that we had, where they managed, there was like a tight little stairwell with a door that had been magically sealed at the bottom, and they were up against this elderly troll that was magic and was going to be putting them to their death with trapping vines and other spells. And in one turn, they all were just like, we know there's massive rocks and boulders at the top of these stairs. if we can all just get up there and turf down this massive boulder, maybe that can do some damage. And I was like, she doesn't have hit points now. This is going to be, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if how many hit points this actually does to her.
Yeah.
This is going to kill her because it was too good not to just reward them with that.
Yeah.
That was
Rule of cool. Rule of cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
All right. How do you craft memorable NPCs that captivate both players and the audience?
That's well, I mean, you've seen some of my Lost Mine characters, right? Nacho. For me, it's about it's just kind of like any kind of performance, right? If you don't go to 10 or go to 11, if you don't go to 11, then it's not going to be as exciting. It's not going to be as memorable than if you just go, all right, so this goblin jumps out of the bush and goes, "Give me your stuff." It's like, no, give me your stuff. Like, just go as theatrical and crazy with whoever. Like, I had the mayor in Vandalin was like an obese dude. So I tried to make him almost grotesquely obese, not to try and put him in any sort of specific bucket, but like he was a bad guy. He was obviously greedy. So I wanted to make it sound like he was always had something in his mouth, and replicate that. And he was kind of gross and stupid, not in like a Homer Simpson dumb, but like I'm working for someone and I know it's not good, but what can I do kind of thing. It's tropes, man. They work. Cliches and tropes work for a really good reason.
Yeah.
And I just try and find one thing, just one little thing. And then I try and think of a word that they might say, and I try and find the way they might say that one word. And then that word will be the thing that helps flesh out how the rest of the way they sound. So I think Billy Goblin, right? This was the recurring goblin. He was always like, "You think?" That was the words. He was like always mocking them for thinking they were better than him. So everything started with, "You think you can get away with this, or you think you can destroy me?" Just going to 11 with that cartoonish evil. And then with Curse of Strahd, the book did me rotten, man. The book really details how grim and bleak and horror-filled this story is, how punishing it is to your players. And I lost some of that Saturday morning cartoon and layered on like grimdark. And by the end of that 2-year campaign, a couple of my players were like, I don't want to play with this. I'm good. That hurt too much. You punished us too much. Everything they did, there was no good that came from any actions they did through that entire 2 years. And I stuck to the book, and I should have massaged back in some there were funny moments for sure. Like Ismark, the mayor's son that like asks you to help him deliver your sister to this safe haven. He was always taking a shit. Like that was like his thing. He was just always excusing himself for that kind of thing. And so it's just like, what's that one little thing that I can take this serious guy that is like under the shadow of his great father, and people call him Ismark the Lesser, and he's like striving to be the best man, but one minute, I just need to use the bathroom, and he'll just disappear for a moment, Despite all that, it was too punishing, and I needed to bring more of that in for sure.
I got to give you huge props for like sticking to the experience though, because if the module's about delivering that, you followed through. You did deliver a punishing campaign.
I think the one thing that really are you guys both familiar with the story of Curse of Strahd?
Yes, yeah.
AJ, yeah. So you've got Kretsk, where you've got all of the monster folk that are sort of taken up by the guy that's running that whole area. they convinced, look, you've got to, this is an abomination that you've done all of this testing. You need to like get rid of them. You need to put them out of their misery because they're all chained up and miserable, right? The mongrel folk.
Yeah.
And the character was like, hey, look, I know I've done bad, but I can't take their lives. I will give you permission to do that. And they were like, we don't want to just round up 50 mongrel folk and kill them. And he's like, exactly, that's what you're asking of me. And so they were like, look, so he was just like, you know what? You do what you got to do. I'm going to go out. And they were just like, it was just that moment of quiet that sometimes you got to let that quiet because it was a moment of like, oh shit. And so they were like, we have to do this. It's not right to have these creatures locked up in the states that they're in. So instead of role playing the whole thing, I was just like, 2 hours later, you walk out of there covered in the blood of the mongrel folk. And they were just like, this is like, holy shit. And they're heading back down the hill, back down into Kretsk. And what they had done before leaving for Kretsk is they told Ismark, head back to Barovia, your little village of Barovia, and recruit people there. And he was like, is it going to be safe for me to go alone? And they're like, you'll be fine. He's after us. He's after your sister. You'll be fine. So they just murdered all of these mongrel folk. They're heading down from Kretsk, knowing that they've done a horrible thing. We're reaching the end of our session now.
The younglings too?
The younglings as well.
There's
The younglings as well.
There's a DM mode go. And now you guys can all level up.
Yeah. Yeah, players like, I loot the body. Yeah.
And so not only did I like make them feel terrible for that moment, but their reward was heading back into Kretsk and Strahd showing up on his horse and throwing a wet, bloodied sack down on the ground in front of them.
What's in the box? What's in the box, man?
With the head of Ismark inside for letting him go alone. And I was just like, I thought it was fucking amazing. I was like, tingling with like how well this blow after blow was going, because we're getting to the crescendo of like, we want you to hate Strahd. And I was like, and we're going to end the session there, and everyone was just like, and we had to take a week off because people were not keen to jump back into it. They were like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah,
and so we actually had like a few weeks break because people were like, this sucks.
Yeah.
This sucks.
Too real. Yeah.
Yeah.
I made a mistake with an NPC. It was not an NPC of my creation. It was, well, it kind of was. It was a brand new player who was playing a druid, and during a bar fight, she decided to heal a broken barrel. And she kept on healing it in the entire combat. And every time I came around to her turn, I had to respond in some way to this amount of nature magic she was pouring into this wooden barrel. And it became awakened and turned into barrelly. And it had little vine pigtail and trotted around on little vine legs. And it created magical mead. It was a healing potion.
Nice.
It had a use in the game, and it was also super cute. It was an all-female group, which was a very interesting experience. And I learned a lot of things. It was a different style of play for sure. But once you get the triggers, it was a lot easier. And one of those triggers is that they will not give a damn about most motivations that guys do. But if you threaten one of the fluffy little animals, they will murder anyone. And they spend most of the time at each other's throats, not so much the world going around them. So the NPCs and stuff were only really important when they mattered to the characters.
Right.
But you could sort of just let the characters do their thing. And I made the mistake of later on in the game, Barrelly got pregnant, and because Barrelly wasn't equipped with organic things, Barrelly exploded and erupted with these little barrels. And that was the end.
Pregnant.
Yeah. And that was the end of Barrelly, and they were really sad. And I was just like, no, but it's a beautiful thing. Now you got all these little barrels. And it's like, no, AJ. Yeah, no, that was not okay. So lesson learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never kill the pet. Never, like Disney, never kill the dog.
Yeah. That was one of the things I really wanted to do. Was one of the my wife was playing Lost Mine with us, and she had these two little spiders that were went everywhere. They poured out of Billy Goblin, and she on one of his deaths, she managed to tame them. They went everywhere, and I was just like, when do I kill them? Like, she can't just have two spiders forever. So, like, when can I do something to maybe reduce it down to one? But the one she has is now better, so and that worked well. I was like, in the middle of the night, like, you wake up in the morning and there's one left and he's bigger. And you can't find the other one anywhere. And he moves. and she was like, did it eat the other one? I was like, you think I never actually said yes. I was just like, you think that's what's occurred, but the one that is left is much bigger now, and here is the new stats for it. Done. She was happy. She was fine.
That's a very good way of handling it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Behind the curtain. It's like you don't. Yeah. Hello. There it is. It's a done thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let me tell you, you're on a tightrope there, man. Yeah. I've seen the other side of that, and it wasn't pretty. I felt like a pariah at my own table.
Oh, I bet.
I think you just answered this question. Do you plan and pace cliffhanger moments to maintain audience engagement during your streaming sessions?
Every single time. It's not like I don't plan it hours or days ahead. It can sometimes be 5 minutes ahead. You'll just be like, oh, I know where we're heading now. And I just need to make sure that the right thing is said so that I can end it on this moment where the players go, oh, I don't want to end now. And the viewers are like, oh, I've got to come back to see where this is gone. Sometimes it just works perfectly. And other times it just doesn't work. And it's just like, all right, well, I think we're going to end it there. And it's nothing. But most of the time, most of our episodes, most of our sessions end on that hook. And I'll either go 10 minutes longer than I need to, or I'll wrap up 5 minutes earlier than I need to, just because it happens. And I can't let it go. I can't let someone go, and then I go over and have a look. No, I can't. I gotta go. No, this is it.
Yeah. I've been me and Nacho have been reading this series, RPG lit series called Dungeon Crawl Cal, and he has this masterful.
I've heard of this.
I'm not surprised. So good. Yeah,
so good.
It's so potent that it's making its way through the zeitgeist just organically. You're like, like the 100th monkey. You'll hear about it without knowing where. So he has this masterful way of, like, you know what's going on, and you're sort of like, you're following along the thing, and then you're sort of, got to put the book down, and then what? It's like twists. It's like, what? It's almost like he's got a timer, and he's just like, his attention is now, and just hits you with something that just totally changes the game. And I don't know if I'm ever going to master that. But yeah, it's a goal for sure.
It's very satisfying to hit that cliffhanger.
Yeah.
But I don't even know how that would. I don't know if that's harder or easier because I'm live streaming, where I can just be like, oh, like I know that we've got a loose time to wrap up, versus, hey, the guy's around and we're just having drinks and chips, that kind of thing. So it might be easier for me to get that moment, because I do have look, we're going to end at 10, and I'll sometimes cut it a little bit earlier. It might go over 5 minutes, but I can massage that last minute. But everyone knows, they're wrapping up soon. Something's going to happen.
Right.
That helps.
Yeah. The expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always good to leave on a cliffhanger. My Friday night games, they don't have a time limit. They just go until I lose my voice or I've run out of things. I have to call it just due to my energy levels.
Right.
Which is always an anticlimax, because I should probably call it earlier. But I'm just enjoying playing the game, and then it's like, it's 1 a.m. No wonder I've got no voice.
Yeah.
We've been playing since 7:30.
I personally would much rather have shorter sessions than longer sessions. Like, there's a part of me that's like, I just want to have like a 5-hour, 6-hour session. And like every Christmas, I don't know if we're doing one this year, but pretty much every year we've done like a Christmas special. And that is normally like a 4 to 5 hour thing instead of our usual sort of 2 hour thing. And those are always fun because it's like, it's a one shot. I'll do a big homebrew kind of story about this, like, oh, this Christmas time in Barovia was our last one, you know. It's fun, but I think I prefer those shorter ones just because you end the amount of times I go to bed wanting, if we'd just gone for another hour. And all that does is fuel my thoughts for a completely sleepless night, first of all.
Yeah.
And then like fuels it for whatever we're going to do next session.
Yeah. That's a DM curse going to bed going, fuck,
yeah.
that monster had lair actions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should have been half damage to everything non-magical. Damn it.
God damn it.
I've been asked, it's like, why have you got terrain and stuff for a tavern? How much time do you expect to spend in a tavern? And then you run a tavern barber or one off, and it's just like, oh, that's why.
I would love to play with the full terrain. I've never done that. The minis and terrain would be amazing. I've done maybe 2 or 3 in-person games.
Why I'm called the Mighty Glue Stick. Yeah.
It's an expensive habit, though, right?
Not necessarily. I can show you. I can just show you how to make Dwarven Forge level stuff just using cardboard and glue sticks.
Nice.
And don't even have to paint stuff. You can just print stuff on your printer.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a game changer, eh?
Yeah.
All right. Has audience feedback ever changed the direction of a game?
Audience interaction, yes. But not so much feedback. There was one person who was like, he'd put heaps of money and he'd been subscribing for ages. And he was like, I'd love if one of my characters could be like just appear in your game. And I was like, well, tell me about it and blah, blah. And it became like Needle, which was the magical character that came in through Curse of Strahd. So that's probably the main sort of direction from a viewer. In the end, I don't want the players feeling like an outside force is changing their character's story. That's one of the main reasons I really stopped bringing in the viewers being able to change the world. It felt a little bit like I was saying, hey guys, this is our story and theirs. And I wanted it to be our story because it's I don't know, it's quite a personal thing to get invested for that long with a character.
It's interesting that you say that because that was something I did notice during your Lost Mine, like how much you were dividing your time with your players and your audience. And I was like, how's it like that? That must be so hard, like because it's like you've almost got a second set of players going on here.
Exactly right. Yeah. So that stopped massively with Curse of Strahd. And then erased it completely with everything past that. And like I said, it has. I 100% believe that it's cost us viewers. We'll get people jumping in that have never seen us play before, and they'll just leave a comment like, "Oh, not another stream that doesn't talk to the chat." It's like, well, mate, we're playing a game here, and you know, we put it out on podcasts and stuff like that. If we can't have people listening to a podcast with little side stories with the viewers, or increasing my editing time more than it needs to be, you know. So it basically came from laziness of me not wanting more editing time.
Yeah.
But it has cost us the viewers quite a lot this year. But, you know, I had a look at viewership over the last few years, and what we had with our viewers has aligned with pretty much the streaming side of Dungeons and Dragons, which is over COVID, it spiked massively. People were locked up at home with nothing to do, so they heard about Critical Role, then they ventured away from Critical Role to different other streamers, and then once the world opened back up and COVID was sort of more on its way, everything dropped down. The number of people streaming dropped down, the number of people watching streamers dropped down, and the average number of viewers per streamer dropped down as well. So we felt that, but it doesn't stop us from just having fun. It doesn't stop us at all.
Did you notice a spike when Baldur's Gate 3 came out?
Yes, there was, but again, that was around a similar time. That was as the spike from COVID was starting to drop. There was like an extra little spike up again. And then it's just dropped massive. And it's okay. We're not doing it for a living, so it doesn't really affect us. We still play every week that we can, you know, and we still stream it. I still love streaming, whether we have viewers, whether we've got like 3 viewers or 30 viewers or whatever. It doesn't matter. I'll perform. I will give, because I'm performing for my players. The viewers just get to enjoy it as well.
Yeah, I often say if you're not passionate about a thing, it's not really going to gel with the audience anyway.
Yeah.
And YouTube is not a thing that you should aim for doing, or streaming. It's not something you should aim to do for a living. You should be doing it whether you get paid or not. It's a compulsion. I get antsy if I haven't put out a video in 4 days or 5 days.
Yeah,
jonesing for a video release.
And I've sort of thought of that as well. I'm like, if the viewership is dropping, should we continue streaming? Is that something I should be putting the effort into as well? And the reality is, even if we stopped streaming today, I'd still be putting in the same effort to make sure the maps and faces and voices and everyone can see each other and interact with each other. There's sound and music, and so it's like, why not also just hit record or stream as well?
Also, that's a set of skills that could translate very well into a theatre sports environment, or like even Joe Rogan's got the guy in the background in the chair doing all the tech stuff and searching things for him. So I would love somebody who would do that. So if I was running a stream or something, that would be fantastic.
One of the more enjoyable things I did, we had a few years back, there's the yearly Kiwi RPG week, right? And so for a couple of years, I hosted a bunch of different players and their games on Getting Dicey's Twitch channel. And one of the things I really enjoyed was, for one of the games, I set up individual cameras. I wasn't playing, I wasn't DMing, I was just watching and controlling the cutaways to the different players using just my Stream Deck. That was great. That was awesome. And I think the quality of that stream looked fantastic, because as soon as someone started talking, they're full screen. And then when it's back to the group, it's everyone on screen, and then cut away. It was great. Everyone had their own little moment.
Production quality.
Yeah,
because you do that. You have that really cool thing when there's combat, that it comes together like Avengers Assemble, like this cartoon.
Yeah, that was something that I did a lot more for the presentation during Lost Mine, and slowly I was realizing, who am I spending hours doing this for?
Because 5 years later,
yeah. That's true. People, we had I'd say, all right, everyone roll initiative, and it would just go, and all the characters in costume and faces would pop up and then shatter away to reveal everyone playing.
Street Fighter type vibes.
And I'd also do I'd spend my Saturday getting the last week's session and cutting together like a last week on Getting Dicey. And it was like, I would go through that 2.5 hours to find the perfect things. What am I going to be dealing with this week that I need to remind them of? So I've got to put that into this recap as well. And maybe I'll grab something from 3 sessions ago and put it into this recap just to help remind them as well. And I realized my players didn't actually watch them. They were like, we know what happened. And it's like, And the viewers loved them. But I'm putting 5 hours of editing into a 30-second, maybe a minute-long clip for 30 people sometimes, What am I doing? And I started, I loved it, and I probably still love it. But it got to that point where I'm just like, it's not, I had to tell myself my time is better used elsewhere. Otherwise, I'd still be doing it. But I had to,
I'm doing the same thing with this podcast. Doing the same thing with this podcast. What am I doing?
If I had even suspected, years and years ago when I started doing these YouTube videos, that people were going to be watching the videos that I made then, now, today, I would be, I would definitely be putting the time in. So I would, my advice would be carry on, because you're not doing it for the 30 viewers now, you're doing it for the 3,000 viewers in the future who are going back through and binge watching all of your past content.
I'm amazed that we still get a bunch of viewers every month for our Lost Mine playthroughs, and people are like, oh my God, I don't care that this is 6 years old. This is fantastic. It's like, okay, well, it only gets better because this is rubbish compared to where we are now.
It's like a published adventure is it's good because it's familiar ground for people. So they want every new player to an RPG hears the stories about old adventures. People, talking about, did you play this? Blah blah blah. So homebrew games are great, but they don't have that shared anecdotes. And so if you do produce a live streamed, module that you're running through, it's got that, they get that vicariously. Did you watch? Have you played? No, but I know it. I've watched it. I've seen it.
Yeah, we get a lot of comments from people who are like, "Oh, I was just looking for something because I'm planning to DM this for someone, and I stumbled upon yours." I don't get that with my homebrew episodes because of course I don't. It's something that literally no one other than a very small group of people have ever heard of. So that has like the lowest views.
It's fascinating because we're still at the very infancy of this as an entertainment medium, and so these are really pivotal lessons to be learned as a business model and as a direction to follow, because people are looking for, how do you get into this? What works, what doesn't work, and we're still learning that ourselves, and it's constantly changing. You have to, that's one of the things I love about YouTube, is that you have to pivot all the time. And conform with whatever, restrictions and, ad guidelines and all that sort of stuff is attached to it. And also the company itself has thrown us huge spanners in the works, but we won't talk about that.
But we're positive here.
Yeah, very positive. I'm very interested in the direction they're headed. It's good for you with the streaming and things and the virtual tabletops and stuff. So I'm fascinated how that's going to go. And
I feel like they're already like 2 years or 3 years too late, though. I worry that they saw the spike that COVID brought, and they're like, all right, we're going to get on this. We're going to get, everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
And then obviously the controversies and COVID sort of has gone, and they're going to deliver this, what I think will be an amazing package to the hardcore people like yourselves who really only play in person, who may not want to do all the technical VTT stuff. Could be really interesting.
It's a gamble, but the payoff, the profits that they can get from that are so astronomically high compared to publishing that they're willing to tank the company to do it. And that's just the reality of it. The shareholders are really driving it. It's got nothing to do with the CEO and those guys. So it's we've really got to turn over a new leaf now and say, okay, give you the benefit of the doubt, see what you can do. Because at the moment they hold the reins of the company and the game that we love. So they're driving not only that, but where D&D goes, the entire hobby follows. It always has. It's always will. So it's really but I haven't seen a explosion of indie games like this since the mid '80s, early '90s, where D&D and stuff was just starting to branch out. So it's been a whirlwind. I almost feel like I haven't played 5th edition for too long because there's been so many other games to play. So it's been really great. And also, being from the early times where we did have all those different games that we played, Call of Cthulhu, Paranoia, Car Wars, all those sort of things, we're used to playing a lot of different games, and the modern audience have got much less experience of that. They've been monotheistic, with D&D being just everything, and 5th edition being this big thing, and it's just like, have you tried another flavor? It's like, no. But it's okay. Now they're like, oh, okay, Shadow Dark's good. Oh, okay, yeah.
I had one of my players, when I said to him, oh, we're going to be trying some different ones, he was like, I'm out then. I'm good. I only want to play Dungeons and Dragons. I don't want to learn any new systems. And then it only took like 5 months before he was jonesing for some gaming.
Right.
And I was like, dude, I've been reading up on Dragonbane. It's very similar to D&D. It's not going to be that much of a jump for you.
And
he's loving it.
First taste is free.
yeah.
I think you're right about the published adventures though, like the shared stories and stuff. Like everyone that's played the Sunless Citadel has had an experience with Meepo, or everyone that's played Curse of Strahd has had an experience with Strahd, and it's always been a different experience. So, and the reason I ended up watching your Lost Mind of Phandelver was because I have run that adventure several times myself, but it was like years ago, and I had a game coming up with some new people that had never played D&D before, and I was like, oh, I'll just run that, it's easy. So I chucked on your live stream just as a refresher rather than read the book, like, because I like to look at other DMs, how they like, because I've run it a few times, and I'm like, it always interests me how someone else runs it, and go, oh, that's a really cool way of approaching this. Because I don't think with role-playing games, I don't think no one runs the book the same way.
No. And I think if you add nothing to the campaign, then I think you're not doing it right. You need to add one thing that was yours,
Yeah.
It has to be just one thing. I think
Yeah.
for me, I didn't even realize it was coming because I was so new to DMing at that point, was when they had captured Staff. What was his name?
Glass stuff.
They captured Glassstaff and they delivered him to a character, Duran, I think it was, the peach or the orchard guy, apple orchard guy, and then went off to do some side quests. And I was like, in the book, it just says, he gets delivered off to wherever over in one of the main cities.
Neverwinter or something,
Yeah. And I was like, this is a great, because you could see that they were suspicious that they were leaving him behind. And I'm like, I'm going to 100%, okay. When they get back, there's going to be like a massive, it's going to look like the village is on fire. And there's going to be someone clearly that from the flickering light of the fire, the silhouette will look just like Glassstaff. And there will be people tied up, blah, blah, blah. And I delivered that. And they were just like, when they came back from doing the side quest, and they were like, I knew it. I knew we couldn't trust him. But it was literally just the villagers putting on like a show of the heroes of Phandalin saved the day and what could have happened and blah, blah, blah. But it was just putting that fear into them for that moment that they were so suspicious and grabbing onto that. That was my first moment of
as long as they didn't run in and just like KO
I mean, that's basically, David, I think, went running in as the barbarian, and that's when, like, you got close enough to see people like, oh, Glassstaff isn't Glassstaff, and he's terrified of you coming at him with an axe.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting point. Like, you add anything to, like, no plan survives contact with the enemy, no module survives intact when players are involved, because they are the randomest thing in the multiverse.
And they'll gel to different things in the book as well.
Yeah.
Just the way you deliver it.
Yeah, but also as a viewing experience, you could watch this person play Phandelver, you could watch these people play Phandelver, and you've watched two different games that have got 70% the familiar, 30% new. Whereas homebrew is all new, so it's a burden on the viewer to understand what's going on. You don't have that, this is a nice, comfortable thing.
What's one of the most memorable moments on your stream that you couldn't have predicted?
The moments I really enjoy are the ones where the player does something that forces me to do something that I didn't expect to happen. And in Lost Mine, there's like, Dave, our Goliath player, was known for just being headstrong, running into trouble, or starting trouble, I should say, killing things that didn't need to be killed or attacking things just because that's what Goliaths do. They got into like, I can't remember, there was a castle with all the goblins, and in there, one of the dwarves were being held by, it's taking me, I'm not sure if it was an orc now or something, right?
King Drog.
That's, dude, yes, there we go. And it's been years since I've thought about this campaign. And they were like, okay, like he's got the dwarf, we need to save him, let's not do anything wrong. And the Goliath looks to our bard to be like, should I run in? And everyone is just expecting the bard to say no, because everyone's been complaining about the Goliath running in forever. And so all the other players are like, John's just going to say no, it's going to be great. He's just going to say no, we're not going to get in trouble. And John goes, do it. And like, I literally said, like, this guy is like holding the dwarf ready to slit his throat. And Dave just goes, I run in. And I go, 2 steps in, you hear a crack as like the dwarf's neck is broken and drops to the ground. And it was like, what? That's like one of the most memorable moments, for sure.
Well, he's meant to be the one to rescue. So, mine was my players in that game. I used the ruler cool. So you know the owlbear that's trapped in that room. Yeah. So they had a animal whistle, and they used animal handling to control the owlbear.
Wow,
and they basically opened all the doors and managed to push the owlbear into that room with King Groll and then just close the door and let the Albert deal with him. So I was forced to do PvP
Yeah.
against my own big bad in the dungeon. But that was too much of a creative idea that I
like that though.
yeah.
I mean, you got to reward them for that kind of thing. It's just like that. I mean, of course that works. It
Mm.
has to
Yeah.
work.
And then they opened the door and just let him out. The Albert just
Yeah.
left.
Yeah. I would probably just hand them like the character, the sheets and say, okay, you're the Albert, you're King Thing. I'm going to make a cup of coffee and come back and see what happens.
I think one of the other really good memorable moments, just as like, sometimes you just have like really good warm fuzzy feelings for running like a good session. At the height of Curse of Strahd, where my players are destroyed from everything that's been going on, and they're about to head off. They've like organized a big army from all over Barovia to go and storm the castle. And just before they do this, like Strahd has one last ditch effort to attack Vallaki. And there's whisperings of wolves and rats and zombies that's coming out of the lake and stuff. So I start the next session and I give each of my players 2 guards, just 2 townsmen guards. And the entire session is just I think at the time we only had 3 players or 4 players for this session. It was just them at the lake when the zombies came out. Like that was the session. And there was just characters they didn't care about. They didn't care if they lived or died. They were just having fun with them. They got to name them. They got to decide their character traits just on the fly as we were playing. And it was just like, and for the first like 30 minutes, I didn't even mention zombies. It was just them talking about their characters and what they were doing down at the lake and blah, blah, blah. And then the zombies started coming out of the water. And like, it was just like a chunk of combat where no one cared if they lived or died. And I think only one survived and managed to get back to Vallaki to say, the zombies are coming. And that was the session. Yeah.
I go to the lake.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And so that was another memorable one for me. It was just like, it was at the height of when everyone was just burnt out and they just didn't want more of the pain and suffering. I just gave them a filler episode and they loved it. Loved it.
Yeah. You had that on the TV shows. TV shows like Stargate, you've got episodes where in the Stargate SG-1 role-playing game, which is a 5th edition adaptation, which I highly recommend because they've improved the system socially quite a lot. And this is a professional team that were like fully on board with the show and everything, and they had staff and cast members who were playing it and things. But in that, you've got a dial pretty much that can change the entire session's difficulty rating, if you say, or challenge rating. So some days you have an episode where it's a character episode and you don't want somebody to die. So it's dialed down. So it's difficulty 2. And you can goof off and stuff because you know that the guard isn't going to shoot you in the head. And the trap is just going to stun you. It's not going to blow your arm off. But when it comes time to assaulting the Gould temple and Ra is there and stuff, and you've got a SWAT team with you and things, dial up to 10. And
it's got to be intimidating.
In this session, a character will die. That sort of thing, and that ability to dial the thing according to your players' moods, I think is really important. Yeah,
I agree.
Another role-playing game that does it well is Paranoia, where you've got clones. So,
cool.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because there's 6 other yous. So you get nervous when you get down to your last clone, and you're like, okay, maybe I should need to find
that's
this
a
a little
fun one. That sounds great.
a little bit more serious.
Paranoia has got a vibe that is like nothing else. Like for instance, you're encouraged to role play never having seen or understood what a tree is. So trying to describe a tree, like very blatantly describing a tree to somebody, and then the challenge is not to metagame, right? So it's just you've got the laser pistol, and your character does not understand that in order to change the power cell, they have to unscrew this bit here and push a button. You explain it to them very frankly about what's going on, and there's a beep, 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 beep. Because if you don't change it, it's going to blow up and kill your character.
Yeah.
And then
it encourages PvP,
Yeah, that too.
Oh, really?
Because that's the whole paranoia thing. You're secretly a mutant and part of a thing. And of course, the computer that's in control of this complex is based on Logan's Run, So you're in an
Right.
arcology, an enclosed arcology with this dystopian sort of society that's been built and run by a computer, which is where we're heading right now. So, yeah. Thanks, Elon. So yeah, and then of course the next clone comes along, and he's not supposed to know how to, do the thing either. So it's just like, how do I play it close to the edge of like, unscrew the thing, and so that's
Sounds cool.
that's the fun
It
of
has
paranoia.
a very unique character creation. Like it encourages PvP even in the character creation. So so when you roll a character, you get to choose what you have a +2 in, but you get to choose what your next person on your right has a -2 in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh damn! Okay.
So you immediately sets you up while you're doing character creation to pit you all against each other.
Yeah. There's no
Yeah.
pre-gens possible in a much like in
it's very-
Traveller, the original Traveller. You have to roll your characters together because those
Cool.
tables build their entire career and relationships together, and they can die because they're supposed to get like military injuries where they get compensation through a pension that goes towards buying a spaceship, or they might get a cybernetic arm or something like that. But also they could get shot in the guts and die. So it's just like, my character died. So rolling up the character is actually a role-playing experience.
That's
Much
cool.
like world building is a role-playing experience, or terrain building is a role-playing experience. They're all aspects of the hobby that are hobbies, sub-hobbies themselves.
All right, we've gone over time. Sorry about that.
That's all good. It's been great.
Okay. Final question. What advice would you give a GM who wants to start live streaming?
Don't worry about it. Like, just jump in. We started with the most basic. Look, you're not Critical Role. You're not going to have production values through the roof. And if you spend all of that time hiring a studio, getting lights, production crew, getting your players together, making sure they're all dressed awesomely, the lighting and set is amazing, you might get like 10 viewers on that first, because other people are doing the exact same thing. Just do it because it is adding to what you are already doing and you already love doing. If it's make that first time you go live as simple as setting everything up in OBS and hitting stream, and that's it. And maybe on the second one, I think the first time we streamed for a chunk there, we didn't even have any Twitch stuff up. So we had no idea how many people, if we were even getting viewers, if anyone was talking. We had no idea. And it wasn't until the second or third that we're like, maybe we should bring the chat up just to make sure we're not being rude. Can you be rude by not talking to your chat? Is that a thing? Yeah, so just jump in, just do it. I think there's no reason not to. Yeah.
Your players were obviously on board with it. They were.
I mean, yeah, that is the one thing you have to say, because when we first started, I wanted to make sure that people...
the way guys are... Do you know?
Yeah.
I've been streaming this.
You cannot take that away from them. It's consensual, right? You need to make sure they're happy to have their face and voice out to the open, because suddenly they'll be like, oh, shoot, do I have to dress up? Do I have to put on a voice? I just want you there with a picture, so there's not just an icon where your face is. Because if there's one icon on your screen instead of a player, someone is going to click next to find just a team that has human players and no icons. It's as simple as that. So made sure that they were happy with that. Then I got them all good microphones, because microphones are way more important than a camera. Just so much more important. Just get a nice microphone. They're like $200 for something that is semi-decent.
Took me years to work that out, man. I'm impressed.
So much more important. I do short films and video games, and my system upstairs for my movies and video games is 11 speaker Atmos setup. Sound is very important to me. That's the thing. If you jump on a YouTube video and it's staticky and crunchy, it doesn't matter. You're hitting stop. You're moving to the next video. But if the video is compressed, you don't care. Your brain fills in all of that extra. It can't do that with sound to that same.
I apologize for my audio in advance.
It's fine. It's possible, mate.
I'm
It's
learning.
what you need.
Yeah.
The thing is, what you've got versus what you just hear randomly on Twitch is just, there's already a massive difference between what you've got and what your average Twitch streamer has. And that was if we want people to listen to us for 2 hours, they can't be going, oh, what is that background sound? What is that? Is someone eating chips? Like we couldn't have any of that. And so that was just making sure that there were some rules.
That would be the
Mm.
biggest, like, my players would be like, yeah, I don't mind you recording us, but no snacks? No, mate.
I mean, or just mute yourself. But
Yeah.
if the moment I ask you something, you need to be, we cannot have dead air, so you can't have a mouthful of food, you know?
Yeah, so no live streaming from, the Noodle House. Yeah.
yeah.
work.
But I think anyone who's even, if you're playing already digitally online, just stream it. Make up a silly name for your channel and just do it. Why not?
You never know.
Do it. You might
Never know.
find a nice little audience of people like we have. We've got people who still tune in every week, no matter what. They've been with us for like, it's been 7 years, you know?
Mm.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's great.
Nice. All right,
Solid
well, thanks,
advice.
man.
Good advice.
Thanks for coming in and hanging out with us, two old
Yeah, it's
dudes.
been awesome. Thanks for the invite.
You got anything you want to plug before we go?
Look, we're losing viewers, so it comes to we're playing through Dragonbane at the moment. We're doing really well. I don't jump in 3/4 of the way through. Go watch our stuff on YouTube. It's just Getting Dicey on YouTube. We're Getting Dicey on all the socials. And I'm working on turning the stories and characters from Getting Dicey into a video game. I've started coding up something, so there's progression that you can see on our Discord. I've just chucked up a new Patreon tier for anyone who's wanting to help support the development of that. But we've got so many awesome characters with awesome stories that we can scrape away the Wizards of the Coast parts and replace with something that's more authentically us. But I've been working on that for a few months, and it's already looking really cool. Kind of a tactical RPG, Fire Emblem style game, but with our characters and stories, and yeah.
Damn, now I want you to work on an app for my Super Atomic RPG. Desperately need somebody to do something like that. It's only wafer thin.
All
You
right.
love it.
But honestly, thank you so much for the invite. It's been great.
Oh, it's been great.
No, thanks for coming on, man. All right, that's it. You got anything, AJ?
Nope,
We need
I'm
a
good.
catchphrase. We don't have a catchphrase yet. We just. Are you familiar with the two Ronnies? That's our catchphrase. So
Yeah.
All right. So yeah. Good night from me.
It's good night from him.
And good night from me.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.